Recently, there was a nice video produced showing how to cut a timber square using a handsaw. Some of the methods and procedures were quite elaborate. I don't want to say anything bad about the person who produced the video. I know him personally. I've had dinner with him. He's a very nice guy, but it's not something that I would ever do. The only time that it would or could be needed to be that elaborate would be for the purposes of creating the fancy sawhorse set and a demonstration for historical reenactment. In the real world, we don't do this. First of all, you have to think about all the timbers in the timber frame. When you walk into a barn or a timber frame house, you never, almost never, ever see the end grain of a timber. In this case, this is a tenon that's going to meet in a fork at the roof. The roof sheathing is going to cover the fork. It's going to cover the tenon. You're never going to see the end. We don't want the tenon to stick through the fork too much and hold the roof decking up. We don't want a through tenon sticking through a post and holding the siding out when the post shrinks. Most all tenons, although laid out full dimension, for example here 6.5 inches, are trimmed back after they're cut 1/8 of an inch. So this end of timber cut is not critical. It will never be seen, and it's going to be trimmed off again 1/8 of an inch. I could take a chainsaw right now and just cut this off, and it would be good enough. I could use a skill saw, a big diameter skill saw, and cut it in one cut. I could use a 7 1/4 skill saw, cut 2 sides and drop it off. I could cut it with this handsaw all the way through. For historical reenactment, you wouldn't use a power saw. You may use a 2-man crosscut saw. But again, it's the end of a timber and it's not that critical. I don't knife this line. I don't need it knifed. I don't need a shelf for the saw to sit in. I have seen people pair a shelf for the saw to sit in, but that was only done when they were going to cut an angle cut and they wanted the saw to grab the wood evenly. They drew a line, they knifed the line, they paired a line perpendicular to the angle of the saw, so the saw would fit right in that line and not slide out when they tried to start the cut. It was demonstrated at a guild function in Canada by a gentleman from France. And it was a very, very nice tip to understand how to get your handsaw to cut an angle cut accurately. In this case, we don't have to be that accurate. In the real world, it doesn't matter that much. In a whole timber frame, I was going to bring out my model and show you, but it take me quite a while to get it out of the corner where I'm storing it. There are only 4 timbers that the end of the cut is shown. It's the ends of the 2 long sills, each end on the building of the building, and the ends of the plates. So on each end of the building there are 4 end grains. So that's 8 ends altogether in the entire building, and All of those are going to be covered with siding and never be seen. So if it's out 1/8 of an inch, 1/16 of an inch, it's not going to matter that much. Maybe 1/8 might matter, but I think the siding would cover it without any problem. One of the basic rules I was taught with a handsaw is you only saw what you can see. What I mean by that is if I stand up here and go to saw this line with the saw in this position, I cannot see this line. If I can't see this line, I don't saw it. I can see this line on this side of the timber, so I saw like this. Using your thumb, you can direct the saw along the line. Now that I have that side started, I'll start this side. Again, only sawing what I can see. I will continue this down to the bottom. I most likely will not roll the timber over. The bottom is a relief that's going to be removed. If the saw goes down to the bottom and the saw breaks out a chunk of wood on the bottom, it doesn't matter. This is going to be resized to 6.5 inches. I'm going to cut the end off. I'll be right back. I just finished hand sawing off the end of the line, the end of the timber. And now I'm going to transfer the tenon lines and the reduction line onto the end of the timber so I know where everything's going to be. Using the Big L, I can lay out my 1.5 inch line, my 3-inch line, and my 6.5 down. This is waste. This is waste. This is waste. This is my tenon. The next use for the Big L would be to knife the lines. We knife the lines because a line can vary greatly due to how dull the pencil is. One teacher told me, cut the pencil line down the middle. Well, that's very difficult to do. At least it is for me. When you have a Big L and you knife the line, the knife line is absolute. There's no getting away that that edge isn't exact. Each time you knife, and we usually knife 3 strokes, the first one is very light, the second one is a little deeper, and the third one is real deep. This knifing gives you an exact point and your chisel will drop right into that knife line. And you pare away the wood to the line.